Welcome to the podcast. Now that I'm engaged, how do I get married? I'm your host, Kevin Dennis.
And I'm August Joker, co-host and brand manager at Fantasy Sound Event Services.
In addition to leading the charge at Wedding IQ, I also run Fantasy Sound Event Services, a lighting and entertainment company based in Livermore, California, that I founded over 35 years ago.
Each week on this podcast, we'll explore a new corner of wedding planning so you can prepare for your I-dos without the stress.
From budgeting to booking vendors to the day of drama.
Let's talk smart wedding planning.
All right, folks, welcome to another episode of Now That I'm Engaged, How Do I Get Married? We have the one and only Andrew Leavitt with us. He's from ironicreports.com. And tell us a little bit about ironicreports.com.
Of course, appreciate both of you having me here. Ironic, we're a concierge meteorology service, but we focus really on the wedding market. My background is in producing like large-scale festivals, 40,000 person festivals with all the big headlining talent. And then you have to make sure that it doesn't rain or there's thunder or lightning, and you need to get everyone evacuated, which is fun until the tears start coming from the fans. And then the managers and labels start calling. When the pandemic hit, basically the only events that were legally allowed to happen outside were weddings. So we kind of said, okay, well, we have a team full of meteorologists. We know a bunch of wedding planners because I was a wedding DJ back when I was, from 13 to 21. And it was in a time of like dual CD players and button covers and bad tuxedo vests. It was not a good look for anyone involved. And basically called up a lot of the wedding planners I knew in Boston and said, hey, are you all doing these events outside? Is this happening this summer? And it was micro weddings, all outdoors, limited rentals. It was like the perfect situation, or jokingly say perfect storm, for everything that could be bad to happen. So we started the company as a pandemic pivot. And then when the pandemic kind of ended and everything started going back outside, it turned into the wedding industry was on this boom of people really wanting to experience connection with their family, friends. They wanted to do the tents. But I think the style and aesthetic kind of kept up after the pandemic, where people were still looking for that outdoor vibe. And we came into the market as the sort of large-scale concierge event meteorology service for a lot of the wedding planners and a lot of couples out there. So we started 5 years ago, and so far it's been a blast because we get to see a very different side of the event world that I think I had forgotten about past like my last wedding and when I, hung up my headphones.
I love it. And everybody in the wedding industry can either attribute themselves to either starting out because they were a couple and got married, or they were a wedding DJ. So that's pretty much, that's pretty much everyone's story. So, all right. Yeah. Before we get into serious questions, we've been debating at our office. How did you come up with the name of your company?
I would love to hear the two different theories you have.
Okay, yes, because we were talking about it today, and I wasn't sure now that you said that you started kind of more on the event side and kind of saw a need and filled the need in the wedding industry, but I was looking at your website and I was like, ironic, that feels like the Alanis Morissette song when she 100%. Sings, "It's like rain on your wedding day." Is that what it is?
That is where it came from. In hindsight, if I ever start another company, it will be like whatthebusinessis.com. So it should be weddingweather.com or like anything for SEO. We've had planners, and I will not mention their names, but I hope that they listen to this and feel a little bit of like stomach curl shame, who have worked for years. And then I made a comment or a post about like Alanis Morissette, and they're like, wait, that's how, really? And I'm like, yep, that is it. It took you that long to figure out. So it's just a play on Alanis Morissette.
Damn.
Originally,
good, August. That's what we figured it out.
Immediately, I was like, that's what it is, isn't it? Because if it's not, then you should definitely say it was, because that is just beautiful, fantastic.
The worst part now is that like people will mix up our name and they'll think it's iconic, and I'm like, what is iconic about like rain on your wedding day? So it's been a whole struggle. It's the best worst name I think we could have ever come up with, and so far we've had some fun with it. We are actively just waiting for the day that we'll get like a cease and desist from Alanis Morissette and her team. When that happens, we're gonna stick with it.
There you go. Well, all right. And I chimed in.
I think it's clever. I like it.
And what was your thought for theory?
No, that was exactly my thought, and I said, "Don't you think?"
And then I lost it.
Yeah. So, all right. So, can you explain to us what concierge weather service is?
Yeah,
for us people that don't know.
Well, I think that the biggest thing that we kind of run into as like, and this is society, is we never realized when we got our iPhones or we got our first like smartphone, the weather app was really like the first app that everyone was very cool with, like giving their personal information to, giving the zip code, being like, you can track me wherever I go. You're going to tell me something that I need. And the weather apps, for the most part, have lived in this world where, especially right now, it's turning more. It's relevant because a lot of through political reasons, there's a lot less funding towards figuring out all of the weather data that is out there and then organizing it and sharing it. But all the weather apps basically run off of the National Weather Service's APIs. So they all come out every couple of years. You get like a very cool one and a new one, and it has a great user experience, and it has new colors, or it tells you funny jokes. Like Carrot, I think, is one that just like makes fun of the weather that day. But they all provide weather information for what you should be doing in the next 3 to 4 hours. But it's not something that you're thinking about. Well, first off, it's not something that you should be looking at when you are, trying to plan something out 18 months ahead of time and you're worried about invitations, wedding dress, cake, what the, partner one and partner two are going to be wearing. And you're in a headspace where it's like, well, we know we want to get married here, but we didn't think about the fact that like you have a situation where someone sweats through their shirt, 2 or 3 times because they chose a heavy wool suit. So we come in and we sort of look at all of the historical weather data and we point out all the things that people don't really think about. So if it is, some situations where you'll have wind speeds that are over 25 miles an hour consistently at a venue because of wind tunnels, or you're going to have just the area that it's in, and someone in the wedding party wants to have their hair down and they are adamant about that. But then during the wedding day, they realize that their hair must go up, and that adds an extra hour of time that they're trying to figure out what hairstyle should I pick from this Pinterest list of 85 hairstyles that I said I kind of liked. That will mess up the entire timeline of the day. So we started digging into like every cause and effect that there is from something that's weather related. Extra humidity, is that going to be for makeup? Is it going to be for cosmetics, or is it hair? Or do we also dive into buttercream versus fondant and the videos of cakes falling over and like the structural integrity
like a
of
snowball effect.
yeah, it really is. Everything kind of connects to itself. So that's where we started. And then when we started really growing and working more with planners and working more with couples, the day of turned into a very big situation for us where we start a week out. So we're tracking, I shouldn't say the day of yet, but we start if you are in a situation where it's going to be, say, Wednesday load in, Thursday tent is going to start, going to be built. Friday tent, all the installs are going to happen. Florals are going to go in. Flooring has already been down. All these things, but we know that it's going to rain on Tuesday. And all of a sudden, you're about to drive onto someone's backyard with a forklift, and that is going to rip up the backyard. The homeowner, exactly, it might be a little bit perturbed, we'll say, when all of a sudden they lift the flooring and the grass is completely rotted and there's tire marks in the yard. And if that is the the parents of the couple, there's things and people will be upset. So we really started looking at all of the same sort of snowball effects that will happen from a week out before the event to the actual event day. And it really is, I think the real value for what we do is a lot of times is you will have bad weather. There's like one day I'll have enough data to say it rains at X amount of weddings, X amount of precipitation per hour, whatever it is. But when it comes down to it, if there's a chance that it's going to be raining at 3 in the afternoon, and that's when everyone's going to do family portraits, and the planner is on site, or the family, and you've got 5 people looking at 5 different weather apps, all taking creative liberty to make their app more appealing to the market, so it might have better information or perceived better information, you then get into that sort of situation where everyone's comparing notes and it turns into fights and drama, and like we've heard all the horror stories or we've seen it in person. So our whole thing is we have a team of meteorologists. All they do is they sit at the weather desk, they look at the weather, and then they report to the people on site. This is what's going to happen. You've got 15 minutes. Get outside, take your photos. You've got the rain that's about to start coming in, and there's lightning strikes within 15 miles. It's time to tell all your guests, like maybe the after dinner dessert firework or fire pit is not the safest place for everyone to be right now. Let's pull them all inside. So we're just there to kind of take the pressure off of all of these questions. And it's turned into The use cases keep on growing because people ask us for the weirdest things, and because of that, we have a lot more fun with it. We did research on cicadas this year in Chicago because someone saw a meme of a cicada in a glass of Chardonnay, and they freaked out. They called the planner. The planner was like, "I need to know everything about cicadas." So we were on with I'll call him a bug specialist because I don't know the proper term, from the University of Chicago for like 3 hours, learning everything about cicadas and then figuring it out to give a report to the planner.
Wow.
So it's a weird role of science meets events.
Yeah, it's almost like in the middle. And I was going to say, you said you were talking about the apps, and that's one of the biggest arguments my wife and I have, is because her app will say one thing and mine says the other, and so we're always arguing about which one's going to be right when it comes to the weather.
It's brutal because and everyone asked me too, like, which app do you use? And I was like, I don't use them anymore. Like I am spoiled. I have a
Well, you have a
business
whole team
partner.
of meteorologists. You
Yeah.
don't need to use an app.
Well, I will say this: I've learned my team of meteorologists, I do not ask dumb questions to anymore as much. My business partner Jack is like, he's screwed for the rest of his life. I call him up like every weekend. I'm just like, so if you were going to book a tea time, what time would? But and I'm not a meteorologist. I always try to express that as. My meteorologists or the meteorologists on our team, I should say, are so much smarter than I could ever be, or possibly ever. Even if I studied for the rest of my life, I'll never be able to understand what comes naturally to them. For me, my background was concert safety. So it was, we have 40,000 people, 250 stagehands. We've got headlining artists with insurance policies on their hands because of they play the guitar. We need to think about all of this. And now that we know that there's lightning, what's the risk going to be? So the example I use for that is, if you ever see the videos of Taylor Swift when she's singing out in the rain, there's a same meteorologist that worked with Ironic, worked for Taylor Swift and her tours. And, they are making the call to the team and saying, there is no lightning within 20 miles. So it's safe for her to be out there singing in the rain for the next 3 hours. But if there was one lightning strike within 20 miles, everyone would be on standby. The second it got to 15 miles, production manager is on the side of the stage getting ready to pull her off the stage. And at 8 miles, she would have been out of those videos. And so there is a team focused on just where that one lightning strike is, and if everyone in the stadium is going to see, the show they came to see. So it's all about really safety for me. And then Jack, he's our meteorologist. Like, he's the weather side. It's definitely rubbed off on me in a very nice way, but he's brilliant, and I admit that I'm not.
Those are just like crazy logistics. We are in events, of course, but concerts, like, something you wouldn't even think about. You're just like, oh, Taylor Swift's just out running in the rain. You're not thinking like about the safety component of it all.
Well, and even the planners we work with, and this is like for all the couples getting married, and I always am like excited I can share new ways that people have asked us to think about stuff. We've had clients that their clients don't like the look of sunglasses in photos. And I think we've all seen, like, sunglasses in the photos will ruin it. It's like, you can have the perfect shot and you got, Uncle Jim in the background with like giant aviators on. It's not going to look. And we've done sun studies and shade studies to basically look at the type of structures that are going to be put up, which way the basically the aisle would be set, which way people are going to be looking out, and how to set that up so you won't need sunglasses no matter if you're at the altar or if you're sitting in the crowd. And that is something that we will do 18 months before the actual event. And then from that point, it's okay, well, are we going to do a raised altar? Are we going to be doing stadium style seating with like a lip up for everyone so they get a better view of the couple? Like, there's 1,000 different design things that go into that, but it starts with that first, well, what's the position? So there's a lot of people are using it, I think in a very fun way, using our services.
Well, I think you answered one of my questions, because Kevin and I were kind of deliberating earlier today, and we were like, we've never really heard of someone who can, sort of predict the weather that far in advance. But obviously, weather is, I think, one of the biggest stressors of the day. Back when I worked in venues, we always said that's the one thing we can't control on your wedding day. We can't manage is the weather. We're not God, right? Like, we can't
control it, don't worry.
No, yeah, but at least, like, there's a plan. So, well, I guess a two-part question, like, how far in advance can you really, make that prediction and try to give a clear answer to couples? Because I feel like, obviously we're getting this trend of short-term bookings, but there are still plenty of couples who book, years in advance, or, like you were saying, 18 months in advance. But also, I'm also kind of curious to know, do you get a lot of couples who come find you prior to booking their venue, or is it
Yeah.
mostly after? And then you're kind of creating a plan A, plan B, plan C, just kind of based on what the weather's looking like that day.
So it's a multi-part answer. And the best way of saying it is there's two different ways to think about it. There's climatology, which is, you can describe it as your personality. And then there's meteorology, which is your mood. So someone can be a great person and you love their personality. 90% of the time when you hang out with them, you're happy to be around them. And then their mood can change for 10% of the time and you're like, that is the worst person I've ever met in the world. And that is how you have to think about the weather. So climatology is all the historical. So we can start, we say like around 2 years out. That feels like a fair estimate. And what you're doing is you're looking at the last 30 years of historical weather data. So we'll look back at, and we've done an event where it was a private estate in Connecticut, and we looked back at from 2020 to 22 to 1871. And we looked at every major storm that passed through their exact location, where their home was, and what could possibly happen. So when you get all that information, you can start making those feels like or ideas of what to expect. And that's where you get wind speed and the average temperature and the sunrise, sunset, and if there's, a chance of rain or a chance of downpours. And you can really give those ideas. You can't say at 3 o'clock it will rain. The only place that like you can kind of say that, actually I shouldn't say, is South Florida. You can be like between 4 and there's like a pretty good chance you're going to get some rain. But we will start that process, and a lot of couples come to us because they will have 3 different locations. And it's always so unique to me, or interesting, how people choose where they're going to get married. I'm not married, so I find it like super interesting where it's, well, we went on vacation here. Their grandparent has a farmhouse that they used to visit when they were children. They want to do it there. And then like, oh yeah, and we got recommended to this place out in like Montauk. So you've got 3 different locations all within, say, New York, and 3 different times of the year that place is the right vibe for whatever they're looking for. So it could be Hudson Valley in the fall, and they want to know what the foliage is going to be like and when the leaves are going to be turning, or they want to know what Montauk is going to be like in July and if it's going to rain that weekend. So we'll start analyzing all these different points and then kind of present them with a brief. I wish it was more like cool and sexy on how we present the information, but it is a very long written document that Jack puts together by hand.
Wow.
He does all the research, and it reads like a weather report. His bedside manner is very much that of fact. So I always relate him to like Sheldon in The Big Bang Theory. Like if you asked him to tell you like when your wedding for you, it would be like Sheldon being like, okay, and this is going to happen, or this will or could. And then the other side of that, with weather apps and AI happening and the way the world is turning, everyone's like, I want the 14-day weather app. I want the 16-day, and I'm going to turn the AI I'm going to turn the AI knob up, and we're just going to superpower this forecast. And everyone in meteorology is like, it just doesn't work like that. And every other company kind of says, oh, well, we're going to figure out how to make it work, and we're going to raise tons of money and do tons of things about behind the scenes on that. But the truth is, if you get 1 day basically for every 10 years of data and research for the forecast. So right now we're at like 90%. You started to go back about 70 to 50, I'll say like 70%, 7 days out. When you get to about 5 days out, it goes up to about like an 80 to 85% on some of the models. When you're within 3 days, you can get above 90, depending where you are, if there's multiple airports and more services that are collecting weather data. So we always try to say, like, we won't start telling you the real forecast more than a week out. In 10 years from now, we will say, yep, we're at 8 days, guys. Like, this is exciting. And 10 years after that, like, we just hit 10. Like 10 days out, we can start giving you this. So for the next 20 years, we always say 7 days out. And that really gives people, I think, enough time to, as far as, your tent plans, your rain plan calls generally should be on like a Thursday or Wednesday. And that gives you the time to really still make all the choices. You can get 150 umbrellas if you need to in 72 hours. It might be a little bit more expensive than if you ordered them the week before, but you can find them somewhere in the world. So for us, that's the big side of giving people the opportunity to make the changes they need to make.
I love it. All right. So how can couples interpret weather data and put it to use?
I think the best way that couples can do this is don't think about your weather app like it is a fast, quick 3 seconds. I'm going to pull my phone out. It's going to tell me, and I'm going to put it back in my pocket. Most of the weather apps, as much as I want to like trash on them for not having all the information, they do have a ton of information in there. So the best way is, if you think about it and if you see that there's a 80% to 90% chance that we're going to have rain on Saturday, and your first thing is you pick up your phone, you look at it, and then all of a sudden you say 90% chance of rain and you freak out, that is where like the panic and the everything kind of plays into. But if you take like one extra second and you click the button that says precipitation rates, and you see there is a 90% chance that at 4 in the morning we are going to get, and then you look at the amount, less than a tenth of inch of drizzle, that will still trigger it to say you're going to get a 90% chance of rain on most apps. I don't think most couples are worried about what's going to happen at 4 in the morning with a drizzle on their wedding day when the wedding's at 6 p.m. or 5 p.m. So that will save so much stress for everyone in the world if people just take the extra time to dig into the research. But it's not even that much extra research. It's just find a weather app that you like to use, click around inside of it, see all the features. If you don't know, go on YouTube and like download a random weather app. There is some very nerdy person that we probably know indirectly that has made a YouTube video about how that weather app works, and watch it, see all the detail. The other big thing is government. The government does like an amazing job researching and tracking the weather around the world. The EU has one of the best meteorology teams where they're tracking information. If you're getting married on a remote island somewhere, there is going to be like the government down, you could say in Anguilla or Barbados, or say, pick a small island. There is someone tracking the weather, and they have a website, and the person who puts the discussion about what the weather is going to be that day and woke up at 6 in the morning to gather all the information and write this discussion will probably be pumped to find out that one person has read that day. And every day there are people writing discussions about the weather who are trained meteorologists and pushing that out to the world. So just, for in the States, NOAA has great information. And we just tell people, like, there's a lot of times where people will ask if they can, budgets might not line up or it's not the right fit. And we sort of talk them through how they can still find all the information. And it's out there, it's all available. But yeah, don't take the extra step. Just an extra click will save you a lot of headaches.
Well, I love it because that's the one thing. Like I coach Little League baseball on top of doing wedding stuff, and all us coaches are like, "It's gonna rain on Saturday. Oh no, the games will be canceled." Meanwhile, we all play, because none of us took that time to, like you said, to take that extra step to look and see what's going on.
And it's funny because the when you say Little League, when we first started, we were talking to a bunch of different people, and where could we go with this? And is it to little leagues or schools or summer camps? And then I was sitting with one of a friend of ours, and they basically got an alert that their kids shouldn't walk home, and we were all in New York, they lived in Florida, because there was a lightning strike. So it was basically telling parents to come pick their kids up from school that day, plan for kids to walk home if you live within the distance. And I'm like, that is the perfect use case, is that there are people using these services for things that we didn't know about. And with lightning strikes, like, it's real. There's planners that have been struck, there's people at weddings, tents, obviously. So like, it's worth taking that little extra step.
That's like your safety brain coming back on.
It's always on, which is the worst.
Yeah.
We were all about maybe 6 months ago, we were all sitting in our office. We're 45 minutes east of San Francisco, and our iPhones all started going apeshit, and it was tsunami warning. And we were like, what the fuck is, we were freaking out because, one, we are nowhere near the ocean or water, and there's hills between, so we were putting on the news. There was nothing on the news, but we got this random warning. We were all freaking out, and then eventually the news started covering it, and everything started.
And it's funny because you say that. So there's like different. There's a bunch of different ways to describe it for like regional weather. People know what their weather is. There's a thing called global comfort index, or a thermal comfort index, which basically means that, like, I live in New Orleans. It is 90 degrees right now. If I came to visit you, I'd be in like t-shirt and shorts and freezing, because I'd say like, this is like, I packed wrong for this. And if you came down here, you'd be like, you live in a sauna. Like, how do you exist here? But the biggest thing I've noticed when I moved back down here is hurricane and flood warnings. For me, someone that had just done 10 years in New York and have been focusing on the weather, if I get an alert of severe weather, like, I'm thinking about it like, oh, I wonder how bad this is going to be. 50-mile-an-hour winds. I'm going to go bring patio furniture inside. Like, that is the end of the world. And then my friends who grew up here, who have lived through multiple hurricanes, they're like, oh yeah, we're all going to go meet for a drink. Do you want to come out? Like, do you want to drive and meet up with us? And it's very much how, it's how people are used to, or what people are used to. But also with a lot of your venues and vendors, they all know pretty much what happens on their site if they've been there long enough. So if you're in New Orleans and you're basically after April, I would be shocked at any of the venues here basically suggesting to do an outside wedding because they know that there's a possibility that people will overheat because they know it's just going to be a swampy, gross situation. And that's something like you play into your region very well, and that's a big part of it. And when it comes to the venues, another thing that I think that couples should always know is you've booked your dream wedding venue. Like it looks perfect, and you're getting married next to a lake. The lake is at the bottom of this big hill, and there's a little bit of a flat piece down there. Like it's worth asking, hey, does that area flood? And those are the questions that if there is some severe weather coming, a week before, is that area that you were going to build a tent on going to be flooded already? If there is a, bad storm the day of, but you're in a tent, is it going to flood while you're in the tent? And then how are people going to walk back up the hill to get to the parking lot? So all the venues, for the most part, will either have a team that knows it or just find like that old groundskeeper who has been there for 50 years and ask that person. But there's definitely like ask the questions because it saves you. I think it saves you money. Obviously, I think there's a lot of variables like that. It saves you like emotional stress. Like there's so much extra. Put your crazy emotions towards everything else that it's going to go on with your wedding. Like you don't need to make the weather the one thing that is going to freak you out because it's science. There's answers for most of it. We can't answer how your family will interact with each other, but
yeah, well, no, you can't predict any of that. That's all wild card information. It's always interesting to me where couples will go back or will go to their wedding venue -1, like so 1 year out from their wedding day just to see what the weather's like, and I'm like, this isn't gonna tell you, like you gotta that's telling you nothing, like because that time, because even we're in California and like it's been unseasonably cool to start our year. Like we barely have cracked the 80s here, and I think today is going to be like our second day that we've had so far this year that's in the 80s, and it's and again going back, I coach baseball. Usually the kids are dying this time of year playing baseball because it's starting to get really hot, and we never had that. And so it's always interesting to me, like, oh, I'll go back, or I hear I looked in the Farmer's Almanac, and therefore, I know what my weather's going to be like.
I used to say that we're like the Farmer's Almanac on crack, and then I was like, maybe that's not a good way of saying it. Like, probably makes it sound worse. But like, I mean, the Farmer's Almanac is climatology. Like that is through and through. And it was people keeping really good records of what was going on. We have so much data. I mean, the amount of data that gets collected from the weather stations, from every single airplane that goes around, from every cell tower, users. There are cars on the market right now that if it rains on your windshield, it will trigger the system to let an API know that it's raining there. And that was a huge feature that was involved with a bunch of different companies. Like there's tons of data. It's just taking 30 seconds to like figure out where to source it from. And for us, like the amount of data that and resources that we have, it gives you like this not I want to say like an unfair advantage, but it gets you to the point where you can make these calls and feel really good about and confident. And if you're the one for couples, like it's your family, you invited your loved ones there, try to keep everyone safe. Like you don't want to put, grandma in the situation where it's 100 degrees outside and there's one water station that's too far for her to walk to. So making these calls ahead of time to make sure that everyone's safe saves a lot of people.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up too, Kevin. Like, I used to work at a venue and I would get those questions 100% all the time on every tour. Is it going to rain? Where's the shade at? Are the vineyards going to look like this? And every time I had to answer, California weather is very unpredictable. Like it is very different every year. So it's so hard to just pinpoint or give a prediction. Definitely I'm going to be, recommending you in the future because that's just really
Well,
amazing. It's really
Well,
cool.
yeah, and it's funny, even here, like in California, like I want to say it was 3 Januaries ago. The weather was so mild. We didn't, we were in that drought that we were having, and people were able to do outdoor ceremonies in January, because it wasn't raining. As long as the sun was up, it wasn't really cold. It was cool, but not like cold where you needed to, winter gear on. It was in the 50s, which if someone in New York goes, oh, that's what, like you said, depending on where you are in the country, so we were doing crazy stuff. But then the following year after the drought, it was flooding. It was insane. So that's where I think the historical data comes back in.
And that's it. You look at an outlier event like that, I think it was 2020, 23, I think. yeah, you look at that, it's like, okay, this is an outlier. This makes sense. This happens. This is how statistics work. But
Mm-hmm.
then, like, how do we look at this in a larger scale? The thing that I don't like to, thank you for, I'll start this. Thank you for welcoming me to your podcast.
Of course.
I hope I don't get any emails after this when I say this. I think people need to take into account that climate change is very much real.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And there's a percentage of people that don't want to feel that way. And then a percentage of people, which I fall into myself, that think, okay, well, how do we change the rest of everyone's attitude? And then more recently, I've kind of stopped changing attitude and I changed infrastructure. And
Mm.
I think that's how you have to think about it. It's like I'm past my stand on the soapbox, talk about how to turn the ship around, and now I'm just like, well, if we're going down this road, we might as well have snow tires on. And that is sort of my thought, which is California is a prime example where you live in an amazing, beautiful. It's through movies and the rest of the world, it's seen as this sunny, beautiful place. But when it rains, the infrastructure is not set up for it.
Mm-mm.
Where Seattle is. There's just like there are cities that have this set up. New Orleans was incredible this year because we had 12 inches of snow on Monday.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. We had a first time. It was like over 100 years since we've had that much snow. We
Oh my
had a
god.
foot of snow in New Orleans, which was the best day I've ever had in the city. We started tracking it. I saw like the notification for it, talked to my team. I was like, is this real? This can happen. They made it to the store, got hot cocoa, everything to make grilled cheese sandwiches, moved all of my phone calls that day to the morning. And I was like, by the afternoon, I'm going to be off work and I'm going to like have a snow day. So I went outside with my boots on and I had all my snow gear from up north, walked around, and the city it looked like I was back in Boston or New Hampshire. It was
Wow.
and the worst part was that we obviously don't have snowplows here. So
Mm.
we ended up as a city having to call people, and I believe it was Indianapolis, to drive 11 trucks down overnight to get here. And it took them 2 days to clear the roads. It took them, I think, 3 days to clear the highway. And it was something that the infrastructure, like, there isn't a plow in this state that is meant for snow. There are plenty of
Wow.
backways.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you just have to think about those sort of things. It was incredible to watch everyone try to drive around in the snow, and it
Yes.
was a very fun activity to see. But yeah, just in a small scale with a wedding, it's what infrastructure changes can we make? Do we know that we need to raise the tents up? Should we do a floor? Should we do just a dance floor on the ground? I've had some great backyard weddings in Texas where they know that it most likely isn't going to rain. They're in a very dry climate. Wind speed picks up and there's a lot of dust and dirt from the areas they're
Mm-hmm.
in. And that starts flying in, and they've gone with open top tents, but using it just for the structure, for lighting, and for florals. And it's turned into a thing. So, you have to kind of play and think about the worst things that could possibly happen at your wedding, which is horrible advice, but then just come up with a game plan to work around them if they do happen. And that's really what we try to preach and tell everyone about.
That's
I
crazy.
think that's bad advice. I think, you have to plan for the worst. So that way you're prepared for whatever comes your way. And that kind of did lead into one of my next questions because I know I kind of want to go back. It's kind of connected to the cicadas you brought up earlier. So I'm sure there's lots of weather related challenges or environment related challenges, but how involved is your team in, I guess, making recommendations on how to combat those issues when they come up? Because I know you guys did the research on the cicadas, but if there's other similar things like that that come up, how do you guys get involved?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Multiple again, you ask great questions. They're all multi-part. I would say the best way that we do it when it comes to things like the cicadas is we are putting in the effort and the time to do the research. So people will hire us to basically know that we're going to go spend the 3 hours on the phone call with someone, ask the right questions, find out how this is going to interfere with the event, because we're thinking all of us, if you like myself on the concert safety side, all of our meteorologists cover festivals, the Masters, F1 racing, they all are around trucks, trailers, mobile porta potty stations. Like they're used to things going to different places to be set up for events and understand how the weather will interfere with that. So with that, we find people that understand the science that we need to figure out. And then we meet with them and just talk with them. And then we relate that in a way that the couple can understand. And then the planner can explain to the couple, or that we can explain to the venue. When it comes to the actual event week and it's the weather, we get your production schedule or the production schedule ahead of time. And like no production schedule or run a show show is ever what it starts out as, but like it gives us a good idea. Like it's, we have general concept of what's going to happen on site, and then we do it via text message and phone calls. Originally we were like, oh, we'll send one email in the morning and we'll be fine, and this is going to be enough to cover them for the day. I was like, no, we will send 200 text messages throughout the day, with every little bit of updates and things that might change something on site. And then after we do that, we kind of realize that like planners are a lot of planners will basically give us a thumbs up emoji, or they're going to jump into what is cool. I'm going to give you a call in 5 minutes. And then we're on a 20-minute phone call at 1 p.m. figuring out this is the option we have for a sound check for the band. We know the rain's going to be coming at this time. Okay, well, can we move the sound check to an hour or two after that because we know the storm's going to push out? Yeah, then we have to move the dinner or the welcome cocktails to this location. Cool. Is that location on grass? Yeah. Is the grass on the top of the hill or the bottom of the hill? Top of the hill. Okay, cool. It should be dry by then. And we really go through all those details, and it's a mixture of like sounding board and, mixture of sounding board and kind of like giving you the warnings. But when we get together with the planners and people that we trust and know, for us, a big thing is working with planners and venues that it's repeat business. Not for the fact that it is just repeat business, but for the fact that they don't question any information, and they start to learn how to read the reports, how to break down the information. When I say something that I would normally, the sustained wind speed will be under 12 miles an hour, they know sustained wind speed is basically your constant gust or wind over 3 seconds. But when I say a gust is going to be over 35, they're saying, okay, well, for at least under a second, there's going to be 35-mile-an-hour gust. What do I need to go ballast? What do I need to go put weights on? What do I need to make sure it's going to fly away? And they're really getting involved in that. So for couples, you have plenty of time to think about all this and to do the research and to talk to professionals, and you'll be able to kind of know this stuff. And once you know it, then that's where that emotional connection kind of goes away, because like you've conquered it. You feel confident in what you're going to do.
I love it. All right. So what advice outside of hiring your company, would you give couples when it comes to weather?
When it comes to the weather, I would say one, never check the radar or never check the forecast 7 days before you're on site. If you want to do historical research, I would say that there are a bunch of websites out there, including the Farmer's Almanac. I'll give them full credit. I think it's like $2, and you can get a pretty summed up version of what the highs and the lows are. You probably do it with ChatGPT too. There are options out there to figure out the climatology data. For us, I feel like the selling point on that is we try to believe that by having Jack do it by hand, there's a little bit more nuance in what you're actually looking for. But there is a ton of resources when it comes to historical weather data. And when it comes to the event and you're now 7 days out, take that one extra second and look at what 90% chance of rain really means. How much rain is it going to be? What time is it going to rain? And then start thinking, okay, well, what does that rain really affect? Wind speed is like the killer of timelines, and mainly because of hair, which is, for any of the viewers watching this and not listening, doesn't really affect me that much. But it is real. Like, make sure that you understand how windy it will be. Make sure your guests are comfortable, and make sure your guests are safe.
That's important.
The biggest thing is, it's like, not that I think there are concert promoters out there, and I definitely won't say that we ever thought this way, but with a concert, we were selling a ticket for a product for a show, came inside, we probably see you later at another show, but it's not my aunt, my uncle, my best friends, my grandma, my grandfather. Like, it is not that much of an emotional connection to the people that really are coming all the way to see you get married. So don't put them in an unsafe situation. We've heard 1,000 horror stories of people basically saying, well, we know it's thunder and lightning. We know that there's going to be 40-mile-an-hour winds, but we still want to get married in this tent outside. Like, it's not. And when the tents, and they do collapse, like, it's a real thing. And it is something that, like, don't put your family in a situation like that.
No. Especially all your loved ones in one spot.
Yeah, just keep everyone safe. And that's, what I kind of would let everyone know. And also have fun. I'll say it's just going to go wrong. The weather's going to change. It's still Mother Nature. Like, you can be, that 10% is still 10%. That's a pretty big number for all of a sudden, for you to have this great rainbow moment, or it could be 10% the other way where you're going to have, the downpours. For the most part, though, people always ask the question, how often are we wrong? And I always try to say, like, we're not wrong because we're giving you updated information. It's not like we're standing here being like, this is what's happening, and we've stated it on this hour a week before. But a week before, you can start seeing the signs that there's going to be severe weather a week out. And then 4 days before, you still see those signs, and they've increased in risk. 5 days before, it's increased in risk again, like you can start pretty confidently saying that our confidence is above 90%, this is going to happen. There is always that 10% where when we had an event, actually not a wedding, but we were doing an event at the White House for the last administration, and there was storms that we saw, and we tracked them. They went 9 miles to the north and like 9 miles to the south. 8 miles was our evacuation point. We missed it, just completely.
Wow.
Split and went to the north and south. And that is a situation where, there was a 90% chance that we were going to have to evacuate, but the 10% saved us. So you got to also just remember it's still just the weather.
I love that. All right. Crazy story. You got to share.
Very crazy.
Yeah. But you got to share. Do you have any crazy stories or anything that happened over the years?
I can give you like the weirdest. Oh man, I don't even know. I wish I should have had a little bit more time.
Oh,
I
sorry.
feel like my craziest
That's
ones.
okay.
No, my craziest ones are nerdy crazy. They're not like exciting crazy. So
They're
like
nerdy.
nerdy crazy is like we once got asked how deep or how much rain it will take for a high heel stiletto to sink into a golf course in California at a country club in LA. And we had to go talk to like grounds crew from golf courses and figure out how much rain like the average sprinkler gives out in a certain amount of time so that we could then send a wedding planner to go test the sink rate of a shoe. And like that is something that if you told me I was starting a company about the weather, I would have been like, yeah, but I'm never going to have to figure out like at what point your high heel sinks into the ground. So that was probably like one of the weirder requests.
I don't think that's weird though, because I think
it's valid. We get that question at least like we work at a lot of, we're in California, it's beautiful, so we have outdoor weddings any time of the year. And when I used to work at a venue, one of them had grass, where the guests would be seated. And we said like, yeah, it's not raining today, but it rained this morning. And just keep in mind that, any of the girls in heels, like, they're going to be sinking in the ground.
I feel like after I researched this and like this went on my TikTok, I got advertisements for like the little heel stopper things that I didn't know existed. Like a wider base, clear heel stopper for that exact situation. And I was like, oh, interesting. That's a good product. And I might never need to use it, but I now know it exists. So we get the weird stuff like that. I think the biggest, like, there's been nothing that I will say, like, there's been no knock on wood and everything else. We haven't put ourselves in a situation where it's like the tent collapse or things like that are happening.
Thank God. Yeah.
And like that type of thing scares me. We hear the horror stories after, and those ones are always just like rough to kind of talk to people about. But we've had skydivers jump out of helicopters for like events with energy drink companies that we've tracked the weather for. We put a replica house that looks like the Up House.
Yeah.
Up on a crane.
I saw that on your website, yeah.
In the middle of the desert. And that one they chose the location before they hired us, and we were like, you guys picked literally like the windiest spot. Granted, it is the most empty spot in all of like America, so there was no secrets or spoilers or anyone saw that being built. But the reason it's empty is because like no one in their right mind would go out there. So like we've done weird stuff, but we try not to do any weird stuff that we don't think about the danger on the other side and make sure it's always safe.
I love it. All right. So how can our folks get a hold of you? And we'll have all the information in show notes as well.
Perfect. It's best way is Instagram. It's at Ironic Reports. Ironic like the Alanis Morissette song, as we found out earlier. And same URL. So if you need anything, please reach out. We'd love to connect with people in different parts, and especially for people that are a little bit nervous on the front end. It's like the best thing about this job is when you start calming nerves down, you play a little bit of like meteorology / therapist, and then the wedding's a success. It just feels great to like know that everything worked out.
I feel like they're hiring you for peace of mind. Is really.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah.
We get that a lot, and it makes me feel very happy to know that that's what the real offering is.
Love it. All right. And then I have to ask you before we end up, what weather app should I get so I'm better than my wife?
Would recommend fully waking up 5 minutes earlier.
Okay.
And going to NOAA and go to the NOAA website and just read that like paragraph long discussion. It will tell you everything for the day, and you're just going to sound brilliant the entire time. Oh yeah, but we are going to get a northwest wind in a little bit that is really going to change the shift of everything, pushing off the coast. And that might give you the up. I trust NOAA. I think that I try not to ever recommend one weather app. The best one I would have recommended till the day I died was Dark Sky. Dark Sky was one of the only groups that really did it different. Apple bought them.
And ruined them, what I heard.
Yeah, there's a conspiracy theory for why that happened,
Okay.
which is Apple makes 30% off of all weather apps sold in the store. If everyone buys one weather app, they are not making 30% off of 25 different weather apps. And that is a theory that I have floated, and it makes sense from a business point.
It really does.
It doesn't make any sense. That app was great. It really was like the rock star app. So I always tell people, just check the government. You go straight to the source, because all of these weather apps, if you look at where they got their information from, they all get it from the exact same source every single day. So it's just how they present it to you.
Love it. All right, I'm gonna have to get up and be. I don't
Just
know. I'm competitive with my wife. I have to win the argument.
And we need to get you a green screen so you can sound cool while you're doing it.
I know. Yeah, there you go.
And over here, yeah, you have to, the hand motions are key. But yeah, so thank you again for having me on. This was awesome.
No, we love it. Thank you for being here. We will have all of Andrew's information in our show notes, and we encourage everyone to go out there. I think we're going to tell everyone now about you, and everyone needs Andrew, is what it comes down to.
Yeah, literally so cool. Again, like I said, the one thing we can't control, and now we have some slight control over it. So that's really cool.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks, folks. And thanks for listening to another episode of Now That I'm Engaged, How Do I Get Married? We'll see you next time. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Now That I'm Engaged, How Do I Get Married podcast.
Brought to you by Fantasy Sound Event Services.
I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode. Please get in touch with me or August if you have any topic you would like us to cover.
Or if you're struggling with your wedding planning, please be sure to submit a question to podcast@fantasysound.com.
I encourage you to check out our other episodes on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you're a fan, we'd love if you would subscribe to the podcast and leave a review.
It helps others find our podcast so that they can learn from our guests too. And to everybody listening,
happy wedding planning!